A wild week 6 is underway, and we are here to talk about it with you for the next hour and a half plus. I'm Matt Rodewald. So glad to have you here on Friday Night Drive as we go through all the games, all the scores, all the surprises, and all the fascinating finishes. And we're already seeing some of them come in as we've taken a look at some of the games going on around the Chicagoland area. Steve Soucie with me as always. Hello, friend. How are you tonight?
Not too bad, Matt. Just trying to take all of this in because there seems to be some scores flying in from all over the place right now, and some of them are certainly not going the way that I thought they might tonight.
What's jumping out to you in terms of what is going to make you rethink the bracket probably the most with the results that have come in so far?
Well, a couple of them have really stood out so far tonight. Yorkville just wrapped up a 21-7 victory over Minooka, which I consider to be a pretty substantial surprise. And I'm looking at it right now. There's 2 minutes left in this game, and Morris does not look like they're going to be able to rally against Rochelle. Rochelle leading that game 37-15. So those are the two that are really standing out. And then the other one that just came down to the wire, last-second field goal for Brother Rice, a 16-13 victory over Mount Carmel. So obviously that's going to do some shaping in the upper classes differently than what I was anticipating.
Would love to see the scores that you have. If you're at games, make sure you send those scores in, and we'll definitely try and hit those as best we can. Immediately, the first comment we have on the feed talking about Geneva and Batavia. And I'll tell you what, I went for that for about 2.5 quarters, and my observations were the first quarter is one of the hardest hitting quarters I've seen on both sides of the football in high school football in a long time, because there was some anger out there. But as that game wore on, you could feel the confidence start to build with the Geneva Vikings, and then it spilled over in the second half. I did not expect 30-7. I wasn't sure if I'd see a win, but I was very impressed with what the Vikings put together on the Batavia home field tonight.
Well, I was kind of following along. I went out and looked at a game a little bit myself, and I saw that the gap was growing, so I changed my focus to some other games. So I don't really know exactly what was going on in that game. I was given the impression from what I saw, several people tweeting and stuff like that, that Geneva kind of came out from the drop. Impressive in the first quarter, doing what they needed to do to kind of take early control of that game, and from the way it looks, they never relinquished it.
I'll get you my in-depth version of it a little bit later in the show so we can get to everything here. I will just tell you, I've never seen anyone put a 97-yard drive against Batavia's defense in a methodical fashion the way Geneva did. I haven't seen a drive like that from a Geneva football team in 15 years. So It was very impressive. That streak comes to an end at 13 games. Geneva now 6-0, Batavia at 5-1. If I had to look at brackets, I did not expect to be shaken up. 6A and 7A were on my list, and so there's going to be a lot for you to sort through for these next few hours. We have some highlights, I believe, if we're ready to go. I'm flying between comments and our comment system here, too. We want to get back to some of the finals that we have rolling in, some of the surprises as well as we kind of break things down. But let's check in on some of the highlights we're seeing from around the Chicagoland area and across Illinois. Week 6, Friday Night Drive. All right, so I was able to see some of the highlights, but I didn't quite see it on our feed here. So I just I don't know if you had a chance to see it on your end, Soucie, as we're, some technical issues. I think it's just me at this point. What jumps out at you in some of the things that may have popped up tonight, individual performances?
There was a couple of things right there in the video that I found interesting. Not to steal from Lee Corso, but the Richmond Burton sandwich game tonight, Richmond Burton dominating that game as last I saw. So not so fast, my friend. We were talking a little bit before about maybe Richmond Burton wasn't going to be mixed for the Kishwaukee River, but apparently they believe otherwise. So far, a dominant performance for Richmond Burton. Last I saw, they were up 3 touchdowns. So a good performance for them tonight.
Who shakes up the bracket more, Mount Carmel's loss or Batavia's loss in 7A?
It's one of those things when you look at it. I think both of them are probably going to move down about the same amount. Mount Carmel will move from what I believe to be the 1-loss group to the 2-loss group. Batavia will move from 0 to 1. So that's usually about the same amount of teams. So I think the gapping will be about the same between those two teams. I'm more interested right now, and I don't know the answer to this, like who's going to move up and assume those top lines now, because you're looking at two teams that I believe I have projected in the top 8 in those seeds. I think they're both going to leave that group. So definitely some major shifting around in the 7A bracket coming next week.
Downers Grove North with a 28-14 lead, about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. What's impressed you so far with what we've seen from Owen Lansu?
I took a little bit of look at that game before I popped in here. When I got back, it was Downers Grove North was up 3 touchdowns. So clearly they established something there in the middle of the game. York scoring first in that game until just recently. All the points since then had been scored by Downers Grove North. So obviously, put their foot down and went to work, because that is a pretty impressive situation for them. So another one that just went final that I think is of interest, St. Francis holds off IC Catholic for a 21-13 win.
Okay, so St. Francis needed that win probably more than anybody in the state after what they've gone through the last couple of weeks there. What does that do for them at this point with this gauntlet schedule they're having to go through?
Well, it gives them quite a bit of breathing room, to be completely honest with you. I think there's at least one more win on their schedule for them that I think is probably theirs. With that 4th victory, sitting there at 4-2 rather than looking at 3-3 with the remaining schedule that they have, much, much better for them. I see Catholic, on the other hand, this was pretty darn important for them too in the grand scheme of things. So, they've got what I would consider to be a pretty uphill climb to getting to the basic standard that you typically need to get into the playoffs. Obviously, a prime candidate if they end up being a 4-win team. But like I said, tonight's game for them meant quite a bit too, because it puts them in a situation now where they're sitting there at 2-4. So basically, in order to get to the 5-win level, they've got to run the table, and in order to to get themselves in the conversation, they've got to go, they've got to go 2-1 just to get to that 4-win group. Now, granted, the schedule isn't that brutal. They've got Marmion, who's solid, St. Viator, but they finished with St. Rita. So that by no means is that a slam dunk game for IC Catholic to win. So definitely going to be a little bit of an uphill climb for the Knights the rest of the season.
Looking at some finals that have come in across Northern Illinois, Wheaton Academy 41-0 over Bishop Mack. Lena Winslow over Duran Pecatonica, the Dupec co-op there. That was a game that we kind of billed as is Dupec ready for prime time? The answer is no, not yet. But it also probably a statement from Lena Winslow saying, hey, we're not ready to give this up yet.
Yeah, and it was pretty fast, too. I mean, that they got out on Dupec quickly. I mean, they ended up winning that game. That game wasn't as close. It was 46-22 final, but it was not that close. I mean, Lena got the majority of those 46 points real early in the game and just kind of coasted home. So definitely a statement win for Lena tonight. Not that they needed it, but it was, for them saying, hey, wait a minute, we're still the kings of this conference, and we're still one of the elite programs in 1A.
We have all the scores crawling at the bottom of your screen. If you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate the comments that you guys have been bringing in on as well. We see the small school comments. Byron with another easy win. Dixon, another 70 burger out there. Coal City rolled over Reed Custer. You get this in conference play a little bit here. And also Wilmington with a win over Herscher tonight, 42-13. Nothing really surprising you in that mix there. I'm looking at Johnsburg with a 34-7 lead on Marengo last check as they started the fourth quarter. I don't know if you have an updated score. And again, as we have scores in the bottom of the screen, you have a better updated score. Put it in the comments. We definitely will have that. We'll update it on ourselves as well, as we're trying to keep track of a good, 200, 300 games going on around the state tonight. It's a lot of games.
I think there's 240 tonight, to be honest, Matt. So obviously a lot going on.
Yeah, so as we look at some of the finals that also are in, just back to the Chicago suburbs, Lake Zurich taking care of business over Zion Benton 38-6. Glenbrook South, a winner at Deerfield tonight, 27-7. Joliet Catholic with a 28-0 win over Niles Notre Dame. JCA needing a win, got a comfortable win after last week's loss to Nazareth.
Yeah, it's one of those situations with Joliet Catholic now. Yeah, this was pretty important for them. Gets them to 4-2. I mean, they're 5-2 because they're going to get a Week 8 win over De La Salle, who forfeited. Right. So, in a roundabout way, that puts them in the playoffs. But those other two games, next week they go to Mount Carmel, who's going to be obviously looking to scratch the itch that they acquired tonight with a loss. So, I don't think I'd really be looking forward to playing Mount Carmel off of a loss, and then finish the season with a Providence team that, for all likelihood, is probably going to be fighting for their playoff lives. So Joliet Catholic, getting this win tonight, kind of cementing their postseason future. And now all it's about is now we're starting to climb for a better seed.
Hillcrest 43-0 over TF South. Crete Monee 67-0, an easy win for them. It's all or nothing with Crete Monee, isn't it? When it comes to their scores, it's either 70-0 or they get blown out. It's impressive how consistent that is over Thornridge tonight. HF. Also impressive. I know Matea Valley has not been great, so to speak, but HF needed to do this to somebody, and they did. 54-6 the win tonight. Naperville Central got tested with Lockport as well, 31-21, and Lamont a 38-0 win over Bremen. Of course, Lamont's been interesting to watch too. How good are they? Can they get into conference and get comfortable? Looks like they're now getting going a little bit here. Good to see with Lamont's program's consistency over the years.
3 comfortable wins for them after that 0-2 start with back-to-back losses to Geneva and Libertyville. As we've gone along, we've learned that those are 2 really, really good football teams. Not that we weren't sure that to begin with, but it looks like Lamont's got the train back on the tracks over there, because I think for the rest of the season, I really don't see a lot of teams in their conference that can kind of push them the way that they're playing. So I think it's very likely that Lamont ends up at 7-2, probably worst case scenario, 6-3. They do have a crossover against Richards that I think will probably be their, most competitive game the rest of the way. So, it is good to see Lamont turn that around.
Battle in Elgin for the crosstown over Larkin. It's 38-0 the final and now. Did not see the Maroons putting up 38, but you know what? For Elgin and that program, they needed a win like that. That is a great confidence booster for the Maroons and company. So good to see there. Crystal Lake Central 21-7 over McHenry. Prairie Ridge slogging along against Dundee Crown. Very unimpressive 21-6 win, but a win's a win. They'll take it as they move on. And also Jacobs over my Central Rockets. The 4-game winning streak is over. They tried to hang in there with Jacobs. It was a tight one for a bit as that went back and forth. But Central falls at home to Jacobs 21-18. It'll be Central and Prairie Ridge next week. We shall see if they can hang with Prairie Ridge and the Wolves for a little while anyway next week. Anything else jumping out to you right now as you're looking around scores?
An interesting one from Southern Illinois that I know we had talked about a little bit earlier in the week. Normal Community handled Bloomington pretty easily tonight. That was a 44-14 final.
They did, yes.
In favor. So knocks Bloomington from the ranks of the undefeated and says that Normal Community is still the team to kind of put it on the top step of the Big 12, along with Peoria. But Bloomington obviously, has, worn up to the task tonight of trying to take down the crosstown rival over there.
Farmington, an overtime win. Did I get that right? Over Macomb, 26-20.
That's new information to me, to be honest with you. Okay. Early I had saw that Macomb seemed to have that game in control, so Farmington must have rallied.
I've got that IHSA confirmed at the moment. I will double check on that to be sure. North Mac went over Carlinville tonight, 21-14. St. Joe Ogden was comfortably in front of Bloomington Central Catholic. Arthur Lovington over Nokomis tonight, 26-8. So that's a good small school battle as well. And U-High of Normal, no problem with Glenwood tonight, 33-13. And one more for you, Quincy Notre Dame. Do they belong in the Central State 8? They sure do. 77 points on Lamphere this evening.
I'm telling you right now, and I actually had a brief conversation with the Quincy Notre Dame coach earlier this week, and he was saying some real positive things about his team, and deservedly so. That is a super dangerous team in 2A. I'm not. You can't convince me they might not be the favorite in 2A, to be completely honest with you.
Okay, let me ask you a question, because it's not too early to start talking about, because where they are geographically, do they go north or do they go south? I have no idea. You would know better than I, because you've gone through the criterion for years on this sort of thing. But figure out where Quincy Notre Dame would go if you just had to call it right now.
I would say north. It's right now the line is drawing around Decatur. And it's that you're kind of splitting hairs down there between who is going north and who is going south. So that gives them a little bit of breathing room right now to be on the north side of the bracket. And to be frank, in 2A, I think that's where you want to be. I think the north bracket is a little bit softer than the south bracket, to be completely honest with you.
All right, we're going to get back to Mount Carmel's last-second loss to Brother Rice. We're going to talk about Geneva and their dominant performance over Batavia, to be frank. And we have two recaps we want to get to. Let's talk with Kevin. Let's hear what Kevin had to say. We saw Princeton lose last week in dominant fashion. Did they rebound over the rival, the Hall Red Devils? Here's a recap to find out.
Princeton Tigers get a nice bounce-back win here at Bryant Field on homecoming night. They beat the rival Hall Red Devils 41-0. Arthur Burden had 2 touchdown receptions from quarterback Will Lott. Ace Christensen got the Tigers going with a pick 6 to start the game, and the Tigers improved to 5-1. They will play at longtime rival Mendota next week. Hall will host Monmouth Roseville.
So Hall, as you heard there, they have Princeton 1 week, Monmouth the next week. That's not an easy schedule for Hall out there in Spring Valley. But, when you get a pick 6 to start things off, the uneasiness that you had for the entire week goes away really quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And, I didn't have any doubt right now that Princeton was going to be able to bounce back tonight in the fashion, maybe, in the dominating fashion that they did. Right. That's a pretty strong program, that might end up being just a slight blip on the radar. But I'll be honest, what we're seeing in the Three Rivers this year is a little bit of chaos, to be completely honest with you. I mean, you kind of look at the other side as well. Rockridge and Sterling Newman were in an OT game last week. Other than maybe Monmouth, who kind of made that declarative statement over Princeton, it feels like almost a lot of those games are going to be, toss-ups or slight favorites, and that really hasn't been the case in that conference over the last couple of years. There's maybe 1 or 2 programs kind of separate themselves from the rest of the pack, but right now it looks like it's kind of chaotic.
It's a good night in Sterling. Newman won tonight, so they got another win, and they keep on rolling as they beat Mercer County. Did the other team in town beat Geneseo? Did we get that right?
Yes, they did.
Win that one? Man,
yes, they
it's
did.
13-6, as I see there on the crawl there. So an impressive night for the Sterling football clubs. I tell you what, when both of them are good, that town's fun.
Yeah, it's in the Western Big Six was kind of interesting this week. There were a couple of Thursday games in that league. So both Quincy and Moline won games on Thursday night. So they've kind of stepped away from the group. But Sterling's trying to keep themselves in pace to be in that race. So that was an important win for them in trying to achieve that.
I'm just going to assume that's a referee shortage, similar to what the Southwest Prairie had to do last year to get the Thursday games, or did you? Do you have any idea?
I'm guessing that's what it was, but it was also kind of strange because one of those games involved Thornton. I mean, that was the Quincy crossover game where they needed to make up for Alleman not having a varsity team this year. So they needed to pick up somebody in the non-con. The Southland has an odd number of teams. So what you're seeing is the Western Big Six and Southland are kind of using that game off. So I just thought it was kind of strange that, that they made, I'm not sure where the game was at. I think it was at Quincy, that Thornton made that a Thursday rather than on a Friday. That just seemed rather odd to me.
Because that makes more sense. You come on I-80 one day. Now you come on I-80 next week. And
Yeah.
do it on a Thursday. It's a surprise.
Yeah.
Rochelle, it's a final, 37-15 over Morris. I can't figure out this conference anymore. I gave up. Sycamore just blew away Canelan tonight for the Knights homecoming matchup. And you get Rochelle with a win over Morris. Who wins this league right now? I think Sycamore, and it's pretty dominantly clear who's in charge of the conference here. Is it Sycamore Morris next week? Because that one I had that as earmarked as a game to watch, but at this point, I don't know.
Yeah, it was that result was kind of a really I didn't really see a lot of context on that because I was changing some games on my screen over here and popped on the Morris Rochelle game just out of curiosity, and the first thing I saw was Rochelle 29, Morris nothing. So I was like, well, hold on a minute, and then I went to research to make sure that it wasn't a scoreboard quirk first, and then I found out that yes, it had been. So I'm not really sure how we got there. Morris scored a couple times late to kind of tighten it up a little bit, not a lot. But it appears that Rochelle's running game, when it's good, it's real good, and it was real good tonight because that's what kind of got them in control of the football game. And it's a substantial win for Rochelle in that hunt because now in order for anyone else to win that conference, somebody's got to beat Sycamore, and now they've kind of got to lose twice. I mean, unless the team that does get them only has one league loss. So right now, Sycamore clearly in the driver's seat, and that definitely wasn't a conversation that we were having 24 hours ago.
Do you have a Barrington Friend score by chance? I'm looking for that and trying to get that one at the moment.
Last I saw, it was 21 all.
Yeah, I had the same thing. So we're going to kind of dig that up a little bit here. Maybe the next couple of minutes when we take a break, we're going to kind of dig deeper to see if we can get that for us. How about Manteno and a win over Piatone tonight? That league, it's Wilmington and everybody else, but you're seeing Coal City do some dominant things here. When does Wilmington and Coal City get together? Is that week 8?
That's week 8, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you make of where this thing is heading with those two at this point?
I went out and watched about a quarter and a half of Manteno and Piatone tonight because I really didn't know that much about Manteno. I was pretty impressed with them. I thought they did a really nice job of taking Piatone out of what they like to do. And Manteno's offense, they try to spread the field on you a little bit and create mismatches. And I thought they were doing some interesting things. When I had left, they were up 14-0. And moved the ball down the field pretty convincingly against a Piatone team that has done a nice job defensively pretty much all year long, even against, they were pretty scrappy when they played Coal City, who is scoring tons and tons of points. So, that was interesting, kind of revelatory about like what's going on with those guys. I still think it's Wilmington and everybody else, but Coal City, if you look at what they've done after that loss to Morris, they're averaging like 60 points a game. They have really brought the hammer down offensively. So, I think that might be a little bit more interesting when those two meet up again. But it's very, very hard to pick against Wilmington in almost any situation in the regular season. They simply just don't lose regular season games.
Update just come across. Friend with a 2-touchdown lead as they start the fourth quarter against Barrington. Your thoughts just looking at that?
That is impressive. Like each week I get more and more convinced of what Fremd is doing. And they finished that off. That cements it in my mind that like I've been a little bit too conservative on how good these guys are. They moved into the Friday Night Drive top 25 this week for the first time. Yeah. Obviously they should be a lot higher than the original 19 position that they were put in. So,
well, and they cracked the state rankings for the first time in the last 2 weeks, too. I think they're going to climb there as well. I think people are starting to figure things out with Friend, but I didn't know they had offensive weapons to put 42 on the board to hang with Barrington the way they are.
Yeah, that will be a very impressive win if they can finish it off. That's something that, like, you want to plant your flag, that's planting your flag.
Hersey with a 48-7 win over Buffalo Grove. Chicago Christian 41-6 over St. Ed's. I don't know if Chicago Christian is any good to make a run in the postseason, but, it's nice to see them competitive and right back at it here. It's been a couple of years, I believe, more than anything else. Evanston doubling up New Trier, 40-20, the final in that one. And those are the most recent finals that I've had, just flying around from different sequences to try. DuQuoin, a 39-18 winner over Frankfurt tonight. So DuQuoin continues to be one of those Southern schools that we often talk about, but they've been kind of sneaky quiet this year. Now 5-1. They're rolling along here. Carterville over Harrisburg, 28-7. I'm just going downstate here as I'm down in Southern Illinois. Highland, 62-0 over Civic Memorial. Richland County a winner in big fashion. Casey Westfield a winner. Nashville 27-10 over Benton. Breeze Central rolls along. Cesar-Valier 38-0. And those are the scores downstate that really are of note. What else is jumping off the page at you before we take a quick break here at some of the scores, maybe even outside of the Chicagoland area?
Well, I mean, just for frame of reference, Downers Grove North finishes that game against York.
Yes, they did. Yep.
They win it 35-14. A big win for Downers Grove North. A big, hey, not necessarily a look at us win, but it's delivering on what they believe they could do, and that's a good win for them. Really, kind of the first opportunity for them to make a statement victory. And then another one that just went final that I saw. I talked about it a little bit earlier. Richmond Burton with a 49-14 win over Sandwich. So for them, a very strong statement that they're still in the Kishwaukee River Hunt. Also seeing a Woodstock North final. Woodstock North goes to 6-0 with a 42-28 win over Harvard.
Thunder rolls.
Yep.
6-0. And they're one of those teams that, starting to get people's attention. So good to see that they're now at 6-0. Friend put another one on the board, 49-28. It's still under 9 minutes left in that one. So I've got that on. I'll be watching that. Let's take a timeout. When we come back, we're going to recap what we saw in terms of what happened with Mount Carmel. I'm going to give you my Geneva Batavia and maybe a little emotional understanding of why this is such a big deal in my parts tonight. And we'll continue as we look through the scores. Week 6, Friday Night Drive here on Shaw Local. Stay with us.
Hey, football fans, listen up. I'm Top Bear, and I drive a Hawk. I got it from my friends at Hawk Volkswagen. So drive what I drive. Drive a Hawk. Hawk Volkswagen on Jefferson Street in Joliet or online at hawkvw.com.
Do you ever wonder where the profits go when you shop at a big box store? Hi, this is Patty from Oliver's Corner Market. When you shop at Oliver's, you can rest assured that the profits stay local, supporting other local businesses and charities. Find us at the corner of Britton and Bradshaw in Dixon.
I like Reich.
I like Reich.
Since 2016, it's been my privilege to represent the people of the 63rd District. I want to continue representing you as an independent voice in Springfield.
I like Reich. We like Reich.
We're here to help you with your problems that result from an automobile accident or an injury on the job or the loss of a loved one. There's no reason you should go through this alone and guess that you're doing things right.
We deal with tragedies that affect families and individuals every day.
Come here and protect your interests. We've been doing this collectively for over 100 years. Let's put that experience to work for you.
All right, welcome back. Our second half hour as we continue on week 6 of Friday Night Drive here as we check in with the all the scores, all the results, and our first take recaps, reaction to it. I'm Matt Rodewald, Steve Soucie with me as always. We're watching games as Frem's scoring. Actually, the Frem-Barrington game. Barrington finally is putting one on. It's 49-35. This game's going to go all the way to 11 o'clock. I mean, they're playing. There are 8 minutes to go here, and Fremda returning the kickoff and almost out to the 35-yard line. So they're just going to do this back and forth here. We'll have some fun with that. We got a couple of recaps coming here, and some player interviews that we're going to hear from as well. We're going to hear from Joliet Catholic. We're going to check in with what went on with Sterling and Geneseo. And we're going to check in with Joel Bennett's on Geneva's surprisingly dominant win over Batavia. And I'm just going to take it a step further. Surprising that they won, because it's been a 13-game losing streak to the team down south. The Batavia Bulldogs have been the premium program. But the question is it starting to shift some way, shape, or form? And we'll get to that in just a second. Steve Soucie, as you are looking at scores that continue to roll in, what jumps out to you at the moment? I got an Antioch final, 22-18 over Grays Lake.
A couple of Southwest Valley scores that I've gotten confirmed since the break. Sandburg nipped Lincoln Way Central tonight, 28-27. So that was the final game that we couldn't get from before. Definitely a situation there that was obviously came down to the wire. I was watching that out of the corner of my eye. I don't know if that came down to a last second. A crossover game out of the same conference that I was interested in coming into tonight. Normal West beats Waubonsee Valley 21-7. So that was one that you never really kind of know about those, what's the Big 12 and this conference going to do when they cross over like that. So that was interesting. You mentioned Homewood Flossmoor with the 54-6 win over Matea Valley. Andrew beats DeKalb 54-21. So there's just some scores out of there that I picked up. And then Naperville Central, I think we mentioned it earlier with a 31.
We did, yep.
Lockport.
Yeah,
so,
it was a nice test. And again, Lockport clearly a step just behind everybody else at the moment, as they're good, but they need to get one of these wins, and they haven't done it yet. So we'll see what happens with the Porters.
It was turnovers tonight. Lockport had 4 turnovers in the game, so that was kind of what separated them tonight in that game. They had an opportunity there, but you can't do that against a good team.
Warren beat Mundelein, but Mundelein put 20 on the board against that Warren defense, 34-20 the final there. Montini over Carmel, and the Corsairs go down. It's 34-16. How good is Montini? I can't figure them out yet, but they keep burying people.
Their schedule was kind of uneven to start with. The non-conference schedule, not definitely, a situation where, you weren't going to get a lot of information out of them. I thought this tonight was going to be an interesting proving ground game for them, and they pretty much controlled it from the get-go. So it really looks like they're in good shape, and they might actually be in a situation now where instead of getting into the 3A field as a lower seed, they might be able to climb that seed ladder with a couple of wins over the course of the back end of the season and actually put themselves with a home game to start out and maybe put themselves in a situation where it's not like, oh, we're going to play the 3 seed in the first round. We're a 14. I mean, so for them, it looks really, really good for them to shape up like kind of how it would factor into the 3A North bracket.
All right, let's get to some recaps because you're getting called out because you're avoiding Batavia's performance tonight. No, we're not avoiding it. I'm saving it here. I'm the one holding this up.
Just waiting my turn. I'll take my medicine.
It's okay.
I'll get there.
You don't have to take your medicine. I will give it to you intravenously. This Geneva alum is thrilled tonight. I want to start with Joliet Catholic though, because Hart Pisani was there. I want to hear what he had to say, his report, and then after that we're going to hear from some of the players. So let's start things off with Hart Pisani's recap of Joliet Catholic shutout win tonight.
Hart Pisani out here, Niles, Notre Dame. Final score from this one, Joliet Catholic 28, Notre Dame nothing. Larry Stringham passes the century mark in rushing. I believe it was 4 sacks for the Joliet Catholic defense. Hold'em 0 points, just 3 first downs on the night. Joliet Catholic is now playoff eligible at 4-2. They will head to a critical matchup on the road against Mount Carmel next week. The 2 winningest state championship programs in football in the state of Illinois. That'll be a fun one. Hart Pisani for Joliet Herald News signing off.
I know this season you've had a lot of close calls. Tonight, able to come out, get a really hot start, hold on. I mean, what do you think was about tonight that had y'all rolling so well?
Just execution. After last week, we were very pissed about losing to our rivals guys at the Class State Championship. And we had a chip on our shoulder, like I said. And we just want to get after this week. We want hard work, dedication, and get after this week and show the tonight.
So obviously this year y'all have had a whole lot of close calls, tight contests. Tonight, able to get out of here with a relatively easier one. I mean, what was it about tonight that had y'all rolling so well?
We came to playoffs, to make the playoffs. We had to make the playoffs, I guess. We had to get this win. It was an important win. And we played okay. We could have played better. Kind of shot ourselves in the foot with the penalties, but we still played amazing.
Absolutely.
I think it's safe to say you get the urgency from these kids now. That you get the 3 and 2s and the 2 and 3s, and you're like, we can't mess around, guys. We got to get there. And so for Joliet Catholic, let's think about the seniors who are on that junior state championship team last year that lost to Nazareth after winning. They were dominating that first half, and then a train hit them in the second half. and then they have to lose to them again. There's some frustration. You heard the words pissed off. I mean, that's about as clean as you can get, and they responded accordingly. Is Joliet Catholic going to be one of those teams you can see is figuring things out and getting very dangerous in the postseason?
Well, it's also, kind of a strange thing that happens in the 5A bracket, too, because although I don't think of Joliet Catholic as a Southern team, they have consistently ended up in the Southern bracket 5A, which tends to give them a really eclectic path in terms of getting to the finals. I mean, I've seen, they've played Highland, they've played Hillcrest, they've played Peoria-based teams. They're all over the map. They played Mid-Illini Conference teams. And so, and I think that, obviously they're a little bit more battle-tested than most of those teams. And usually it feels like it becomes almost an immediate David and Goliath situation for opponents of Joliet Catholic in the southern side of the 5A bracket. And then you've got Nazareth floating around on the northern side of the bracket. So it almost feels like we're having a collision course between those two, almost on a regular basis, where they're feeding through the opposite sides of the bracket. So, I think this team's pretty dangerous. And once again, I think it's going to probably end up being a pretty fortuitous draw for them too.
I'm watching Friend just tee off on Barrington because they're having to throw the football down 49-35, 6-minute mark, a big fourth down coming for Barrington around midfield, actually inside their own 40. So they're going to have to convert this thing or it's done for the most part. Before we get to Batavia, let's check in out west. Sterling and Geneseo. I want to hear more about what the Sterling team did to get a grinder against Geneseo. Drake Landsman with the recap tonight.
All right, Sterling wins a fourth straight game after beating Geneseo 13-6 tonight. It was also Coach John Schlemmer's 100th win at Sterling. It was a battle of two good defenses. Sterling had Geneseo shut out until late in the fourth quarter. Sterling had touchdowns from Kobe Shipma on the ground, and Caden Phillips caught an 81-yard touchdown pass from Drew Nettleton. Sterling will move on. They will face undefeated Quincy on the road next week.
Who wins that league in the Western Big Six?
Oh, I think it's Quincy. I think Quincy's your clear favorite in that conference. An absolutely dangerous offense. Braden Little at the quarterback position is putting up monster numbers. They've got multiple wide receivers that are major threats. Quincy's an interesting watch in terms of the playoffs. They're sitting right on that 6A, 7A fence. But as being where Quincy is on the map, I don't know what bracket they'd actually want to be in, because the 6A bracket would put you probably on a collision course with East St. Louis pretty early.
Yep.
The 7A bracket, you could be just about anywhere. I mean, you could end up with just about anything. So
Mount Carmel went out there, right? And that didn't go well?
Yeah. So, but I mean, there's options. There's just a lot of, with the 1 to 32 bracket, you could end up just about anywhere in the state, to be completely honest with you.
Friend just dropped the pick six. Otherwise, it was going to be 56-35. Barron's still rolling here. The 5.5 minutes to go. It feels much later than it is in the game here. With about 5.5 left, they're actually inside the Frem 40 now. So if they could score, get it back, then we're talking. But so we'll keep an eye on this here as Barrington continues their possession. And there is the pick six. I'm looking at it now. This is the second opportunity at a pick six, and they took it to the house. It is 55-35, right at the even 5-minute mark. So Fremd is putting a number on Barrington. That is a rivalry too. Those two teams, those two schools, they got thoughts on each other. I'll tell you, those student bodies. But yes, 55-35 at Fremd this evening up in Palatine. All right, switch back to Geneva's win over Batavia. Joel Bennett was there. This was tight for a while. Yes, Geneva was dominating, but couldn't crack through. A turnover early in the second half. Curious to see what Joel has to say in his recap from what he saw.
All right, I am outside of Bulldog Stadium where Geneva just pulled off a 30-7 victory against Batavia to snap their 13-game losing streak against their rivals in a pretty dominant fashion. 23 unanswered points in the second half, including 3 touchdowns over the span of 8 minutes. All 3 touchdowns went to Finnegan Wepner, who finished with 4 receptions, 42 yards, and 3 touchdowns in the game. Tony Chihino finished with 171 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. His other passing touchdown went to Talon Taylor, who finished the night with 7 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown. On the other side, Batavia couldn't really get anything going. Nathan Whitwell, who came into the game with 5 straight 100-plus rushing yard games, only finished with 26 yards on the ground. So pretty dominant showing from Geneva all around. They go to 6-0 on the season, 4-0 in conference play. Batavia has their 10-game Duquesne Conference winning streak snapped. They are now 5-1 on the season and 3-1 in conference play.
I have a lot I can say on it, but I'm going to start with you on what your reaction was as the way this thing unfolded tonight.
Well, the first thing that stood out to me from Joel's report right there was the statistical line on Nathan Whitwell. No one's come even close to doing that to him this season, where they kind of almost took him and made him a non-factor in the game. He has had a huge year to this date. That is a colossal effort right there from the Geneva defense, and all props to them on that front. That was something that was a factor in this game that I did not consider, and obviously Geneva's defense came ready to play and did a fantastic job.
I don't want to just jump on the Kool-Aid and do the alumni dance here, but I honestly had a question as I'm watching it. The way they were performing against that team, does that put them in a mix to get to normal? At least, yes, East St. Louis is sitting on the other side, but at this point it's been – until you beat Batavia, until you can show you can compete with the Cary Grove, I'm not sure you can be considered a state contender. Are they now?
It's a conversation that we can have now.
Yes.
And by the way,
that's right.
You said you're not going to do the alumni dance. I'd personally like to see it. I mean,
okay. Well, there's no alumni dance. Geneva, let's go. Yeah. Geneva, let's go. I'm sure the Batavia coaching staff is watching this thrilled. I know as much as I enjoy Matt Holmes' defense because it's so good each and every year, he loves to give an I Hate Geneva speech on the Wednesday of Geneva week. Didn't work this year. 13 years, it's worked. This year, it didn't work. Sometimes your audience changes. I guess I don't know what it is. But I just thought that Geneva did a lot to outplay Batavia in this one. And finally, the turnovers got them. Geneva kicked the field goal to go up 10-7 early in the third quarter. And then on that ensuing kickoff, nobody landed on it. Geneva kid fell on it, and they were able to turn a quick reaction, turn that into a touchdown. I think what was interesting tonight was Geneva's game plan. Over the years, when I've seen them go against Batavia with Talon Taylor, they've tried to use him as more of a decoy. This year, not today. First play, fly route down the left side. It didn't convert, but it was one of those a telling moment where the first 6 plays were all to him, all touches, all over the field. And they were determined to get him involved. And Batavia's defense was hard-hitting and pretty good for a little bit, but I think they just broke in the end. And I don't think it's an indication of Batavia's talent. They'll be fine. But it's one of those – we saw it with Wheaton North. We saw it with St. Charles North. In the Duquesne Conference, sometimes the waterfall comes and you just can't stop it. And I think we've seen that in this league more than anywhere else in the state of Illinois this year.
Well, you mentioned that they did make a conscious effort to get Talon Taylor the ball. I thought it was interesting that all their touchdown scoring, other than the one touchdown, came from a different source. And we had talked about before that they needed to get a step-up performance probably from someone other than him as well in order to win this football game, and they obviously did. So being able to distribute the ball to other people and at least keeping the Batavia defense honest in the sense that, hey, we'd like to double and triple this guy. We know how good he is, but I don't know if we can get away with it. These other guys are actually producing. So, it becomes a pick your poison type of a situation apparently. And, whatever they picked tonight didn't seem to work. So just a really, really defining win for them, I think, in the sense of, hey, our defense is better than people think. Our offense is pretty good too. I mean, we've got the complete package here, and a convincing win over Batavia definitely proves that.
It's better than I thought, and I was criticizing a little bit last week in the sense that Geneva couldn't stop the run in the first half against Glenbard North, and with what Batavia's done on the run, I thought this is a problem. I was very impressed with the way they came out. Batavia, Whitwell was going side to side, and I'm not sure if that was just play calling or anything else, but Geneva's got enough speed to get to those edges on that defensive front and the second level, and that's really why they bottled them up. Instead of north-south, it was way too much east-west, and it were a lot of 3-and-outs, a lot of punts, and Geneva, when they had the ball, they held on to it. That's something they have not done against Batavia in 15 years, really against any of the elite teams, whether it's St. Charles North, Batavia, or even Wheaton North at times. They've not been able to sustain long drives. And to watch them put a 97-yard drive on the table to take them into the end zone was very impressive. And you could feel it. I was talking to our good friend, Edgy Tim O'Halloran was there. And I said, you know what I'm sensing? And this is in the first half. You can feel the confidence in a rivalry actually feeling to change. Not that, I hope we can win. It's, no, we're going to win this game. And that's so much fun. I don't care what rivalry it is. That's fun to see, whether it's Mount Carmel, St. Rita, whether it's JCA, Nazareth, whether it's Barrington, Friend, like it's going tonight. I don't know how many times Barrington's beat Friend in a row. It's probably been a couple years. But when you go through a 13-game losing streak, those seniors have never seen a Geneva win against a Batavia team before. That's a big deal. So I'll be very curious to see how they react, how they add to it. That's one of those things. Malachi Smith also, as Joel Bennett points out, was out early in that one. So that was definitely a factor for sure. Isaiah Brown also bottled up. Overall win. I'll be very curious to see how this goes from here. Also, two things, and I'll move on. Batavia's score was on a Philly special on the final play of the first half on 4th down.
Nice.
So it's like wonderful. And, as Denny Pierren's a great coach, and he pulls out the occasional trick play, and he pulled it out there, and I took my notepad and threw it because I'm just like, come on. It's always coming. And for Talon Taylor, just in terms of the rankings of touchdown catches, Talon's got 24, I think, and I have 0. So that's where the rankings go in the Geneva tier.
Another interesting note from tonight. Wheaton Warrenville South wins 31-0 over Wheaton North. We had talked about that being a game that might be pivotal for both of them, but Wheaton Warrenville South rebounding nicely from what last week was probably a bitter pill to swallow. And
that's an angry football team.
And beat a team they needed to beat. Let's be honest, they needed that win over Wheaton North. Gets very sketchy for them if they don't get it. So a nice win for the Tigers tonight.
I believe Wheaton South still has Batavia on the schedule, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they do.
And that means, I don't know when it is. I'd have to pull that up to find out. But I'll be curious if it's next week or not, because that would make things really interesting for both of those teams, because the mood would be very different. And sure enough, next week, it's a couple weeks, as Batavia will host Wheaton South in the coming weeks. What else do you see going on your screen as we're looking around? It's about 1:20 left. The Fremd has the ball, and they're kneeling it down, so that's it for them. Curious to see how Fremd continues to go on. The Fremd Vikings are 6-0. I mean, this is you had that coming, right? Of course you did.
So it's one of those things. I'm just kind of like trying to piece together what had happened tonight, and the game. Most of the games that I'm seeing, other than the really big upsets tonight, we're playing right along the way that I thought. Some of the interesting results, to be honest with you, are coming out of the Catholic League tonight. We were looking at, the Nazareth went final over St. Rita. That was 45-21 in favor of Nazareth. Last I saw, Loyola was kind of holding a tight advantage over St. Ignatius. I have not seen an update on that in a while.
I don't either.
The one that I was looking at tonight, and I haven't seen a final, but I do know who won the game. And they were winning pretty comfortably when I saw it earlier. Fenwick really took St. Lawrence to school tonight. I mean, they were comfortably in charge of that game. And once again, we have no teams left now in the Chicago Catholic League that don't have at least one loss. Fenwick, once again, I think they're kind of everybody's kind of sleeping on them. After that, week 1 loss, they've really, really moved along. I'm just seeing the final pop up right now. courtesy of one of the people in the chat room. Fenwick with a 37-15 win. So,
right.
So that's a really nice win for Fenwick, and it's one of those things like when you look at the league in general, I think Fenwick's not getting the credit that they deserve. I really do. This was a game where I wasn't sure what was going to happen in it. I thought Fenwick could win the game, but now you're looking at a 5-1 football team, and the only loss was that 1-point loss to JCA. So, I mean, it basically comes down to they very easily could have won that game against JCA and be sitting there at 6-0. And they've beat some pretty solid teams. They beat St. Ignatius. They beat Montini. Last week they got the forfeit win, but this win tonight over St. Lawrence, previously undefeated, it's a pretty good football team. I mean, I know they still got Mount Carmel down the line. They finished with Carmel, but I mean, Montini beat Carmel pretty easily tonight. So, I mean, I think it's highly possible that we could be looking at a 7-2, 8-1, possibly 8-1 Fenwick team, heading into the playoffs, and they're going to be dangerous right in the middle of the field that they end up in. I mean, that's really where we're at.
Some Central Illinois scores to know. Hey, Moments won. They got the big win over who they have tonight. South Fork.
South
my
Fork,
page refreshed.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that was a 28-20 final there. SJO again, a 6-0 team now after they beat Bloomington Central Catholic 38-19. A wild one, Taylorville over Effingham in overtime, 42-41. So we got some downstate craziness for sure. Again, and we're keeping an eye on scores. It looks like Fremd is final. Yep, that is final now, 56-35. The Vikings go to 6-0. Naperville North beating Lincoln Way West tonight. Again, we talked about the Southwest Valley with Naperville Central. The Lincoln Ways haven't really sorted themselves out a little bit yet in terms of Central, West, and East. All three seem to be competitive and good. We know East is very good, but how good is Central and West?
It's hard to tell because it feels like almost every single week, Lincoln Way Central, Lincoln Way West, playing a team that I think is pretty close to them. Like, and every week it seems like, well, they win this one, maybe they drop this one, and it's bouncing back and forth between, hey, we got pretty good football teams that we're playing. We're beating some of them. We're not beating other ones. And comically, going back to Lincoln Way East for a minute, they went to 48 points last week. They decided now they're on a 48-point kick. They won.
We're gonna do this now. Okay.
They won 48-14 tonight. So now we're gonna go a couple games at 48. I'm interested to see what happens in the last segment of the season. What number we're gonna change to, and then score that many points every week.
That is a stupid bit we have, and I love that. We should just keep going with that and just make them do it, and just make sure that they should know that their goal is to get to 48 and stop. Just right there. Your defense better show up because we're not scoring more than 48 points.
I'm pretty good at math, but it really does make it quite easy to figure out how many points they're averaging per game if they keep doing that. So, it's a pretty easy math equation that you can figure that out. So even my good math doesn't really come into play there. So, but yeah, so they won 40. They won comfortably yet again. A fact that I unearthed earlier this week after Jonas Williams threw 6 touchdown passes. I'm interested to know what kind of a line he put together tonight. Williams, a junior, is already heading into tonight is already tied for 13th all time in career touchdown passes.
Oh, you moved it up now. That's okay.
Yep.
So
yep.
Will he crack the top 10 by the end of the season?
Yep. So yeah,
you would think so, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I
don't
think so.
have that list in front of me. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible because there's a large cluster of guys in the high 80s, so he may move very close. If he can get to the century mark, he's already going to be in the top 4. So that's pretty impressive for a kid that's only a junior.
Loyola, that big win over St. Ignatius, the final 27-6. Are the Ramblers back? Can we call them back?
Well, I heard some rumblings tonight that maybe Fitzgerald might be banged up again. So he might have been short time tonight or maybe not played at all. So I'm not sure on that yet. But obviously he's a huge factor of that football team. But it does look like, above all, the defense seems to have started to figure some things out because they are doing a much better job of containing people. So moving forward,
go ahead.
they've still got, I mean, obviously Mount Carmel looms in week 9, but, Providence at home next week, Carmel in the middle of those 2 games. It's a schedule that it looks like maybe they can get a little bit of momentum heading into week 9 if possible. So if Fitzgerald's able to go, maybe they'll be in a good place heading into that Mount Carmel game in week 9.
Let's get a quick recap before we take a break. JD Penalty had Streeter and Lyle tonight as he's always watching what's going on downstate, or at least in the Illinois Valley. Streeter, a big win over Lyle, and 41-13 the final. Let's take a listen.
Here at Streeter, we finally gone final. Streeter 41, Lyle 13 in Illinois Central 8 football action. Isaiah Weibel with 1 passing, 2 rushing touchdowns for Streeter. Fullback Tristan Finley, kind of his first big game, had 2 third-quarter touchdown runs that kind of broke the game wide open and put it away for Streeter. Bulldogs now 2-4, their first win since the season opener down in Decatur, and Lyle falls to 0-6.
2-4. What do they got to do to get to the postseason as I pull up their schedule? Because my curiosity is now piqued.
They got to beat some really good football teams.
Yep, looking at it, 2 of them anyway.
They've got a couple of hurdles in there. Maybe they got to win with Reed Custer there in week 8, but they still have Wilmington in week 9, which is never a thing to have on your schedule if you're looking to string wins or stack wins, and then Piatone next week. So 2 pretty good football teams. I mean, obviously one of them a great football team. So, I mean, Streeter would need to really pull some rabbits out of their hat to get themselves in playoff position.
And that game against Wilmington is at the Motorcycle Forest Preserve, so it's over there, not at a home game for sure. So
I've never heard it called the Motorcycle Forest Preserve, but it is apt. I'll give it that.
It's a little formal, but it works. Yeah. So we've got a couple more recaps we're gonna get you clued in on here, and more scores after the break. We're gonna check in on Sycamore's dominant win, ruining Canelan's homecoming tonight, and a battle in the West Suburban with Downers Grove North and York. How would this turn out? We thought the result in terms of the winner, probably where we thought it would be, but the score itself, maybe not so much. We'll check in on that. Plus, you saw the DePaul Prep final come in there. So we'll continue as we look around the Catholic League and everything else. Week 6 here on Friday Night Drive. Stay with us.
We're here to help you with your problems that result from an automobile accident or an injury on the job or the loss of a loved one. There's no reason you should go through this alone and guess that you're doing things right.
We deal with tragedies that affect families and individuals every day.
Come here and protect your interests. We've been doing this collectively for over 100 years. Let's put that experience to work for you.
Hey, football fans, listen up. I'm Top there, and I drive a Hawk. I got it from my friends at Hawk Volkswagen. So drive what I drive. Drive a Hawk. Hawk Volkswagen on Jefferson Street in Joliet, or online at hawkvw.com.
I like Reich.
I like Reich.
Since 2016, it's been my privilege to represent the people of the 63rd District. I want to continue representing you as an independent voice in Springfield.
I like Reich. We like Reich.
Do you ever wonder where the profits go when you shop at a big box store? Hi, this is Patty from Oliver's Corner Market. When you shop at Oliver's, you can rest assured that the profits stay local, supporting other local businesses and charities. Find us at the corner of Britton and Bradshaw in Dixon.
Welcome back as we continue for week 6. Matt Rodewald, Steve Soucie, and a host of reporters from Shaw Media out and about tonight, and we will check in on them in just a second here. What are you seeing right now, Mr. Soucie? Anything jumping out at you as anything still going on? I haven't been able to keep up with the games that are still currently in progress, if we have any at all.
I don't have anything active right now on the screens that I have up. That doesn't mean we're all final everywhere, but I had 8 games over here on my screen. They're all finished. So,
So if you're still watching the game, let us know.
you touched on it just before the break with DePaul winning that game. Shout out to that program. With 5 wins, I mean, I'm not going to use the playoff eligible cliche here with their playoff points. They're in the field for the first time since 2015 with that win. So shout out to that program getting it done. And they've come a long way in a relatively short period of time, because it was no more than 4 years ago that I know that I was at a game with DePaul Prep where they were completely overwhelmed by Joliet Catholic. And it looked like we were so far from them being where they are right now. So really, really nice turnaround for them. And now they've put themselves in a position where they're not only going to get in, maybe they can pick off another win or two and get themselves a home game. I mean, that's definitely in the cards for them. So a nice win for them tonight over St. Viator, whose road gets a little bit more slippery than it was before tonight, because, they finish with, they have Montini next week, IC Catholic the week after that. And that loss puts them down to 3-3 now. So, they've got to get one of those remaining ones, and they finish with St. Patrick, which looks like a game that they should probably win, but they're going to have to split those games to get themselves to 5 wins. So definitely now they're a little bit more sketchier than they were 24 hours ago in regards to how it looks for them.
Okay, as we get to some recaps, a couple of finals from the Black Diamond Conference way down south, because, hey, it's Southern Illinois time. Carmi White County was 72 tonight on Christopher. It was a 72-27 final. I think they're still scoring touchdowns down there. And Cessna-Valier 38-0 over Edwards County. And we get our 7-0, 7-0 showdown. Dixon did it tonight. Johnston City, a winner over Hamilton County, 46-14. You and I are going to nerd out over Dixon and Johnston City next week. How about that?
Sounds good. Like I said, I'm all in support of these guys picking up games and doing these challenge games. Basically, it's essentially what they are, because both of these teams were guaranteed a win. So they're putting it on the line and saying, hey, I want to go play a good football team in a game. Ordinarily, those were probably pretty easy wins for those two programs that they ended up losing because of forfeits. But it's always nice to see when those games develop. And this is one. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, that's interesting. And now it's even more interesting because we've got 2 7-0s here.
6-0. I'm sorry, I misspoke. So I'm already looking ahead of week 8. But for Dixon, they get to start their what I call their fun gauntlet of Johnston City and then Byron right after that. So I guess you're going to find out how good you are. Let's do some recaps, shall we? Let's check in with Eddie and see how his beard is doing, as Sycamore destroyed Canelan tonight, 35-7. He's checking in from Maple Park. Eddie?
Post-game report on Sycamore Canelan, 35-7 Sycamore win from Daily Chronicle headquarters here in DeKalb. Solid win for the Spartans, down 7-0 early. Carter Gabrowski had a huge 53-yard run for the Canelan, which led to a touchdown. A couple plays later, 7-0 lead. The Sycamore defense clamps down. Doesn't give much over 250 total yards. Probably about 250 somewhere in there. 250, 275, 300 as I'm starting to look at it now. Grabowski with a pretty big game on the ground, finished with 78 yards. Sycamore, a couple turnovers though, a couple big interceptions by Cooper Bodie, a big difference maker in the game. One leads to a score, one almost leads to a score, but time runs out at halftime. The big storyline for Sycamore, again with that 35-7 win over Canelan, was the ground game. Kind of got it going really well. Coach Joe Ryan after the game was very pleased with it. Kevin Lee led the way with 71 yards, 58 yards on the ground for Dylan Hodges. Just consistent 4 or 5 yards and occasionally breaking off the 7, 8, 9 yarder. So solid all-around win for the Spartans, coming back after the first quarter at least for a 35-7 win there in LaSalle next week, whereas Canelan's going to all of a sudden play a red-hot Rochelle team that beat Morris tonight. So we'll see what happens there. But again, that's the report, 35-7 Sycamore over Canelan.
Yeah, what do you make of Canelan Rochelle at this point? We'll talk about Sycamore in a second, but how about that matchup next week?
Yeah, that's one of those games that you're still maybe not quite sure, but Rochelle's impressive, really, really impressive tonight. And, you start to play the comparative scores game, and it's like it should be Rochelle and Rochelle comfortably if you're going to play it that way, because considering what Morris did to Canelan, just last week, what Rochelle did to Morris, I mean, you start lining that up, and logic would dictate that Rochelle is playing really good football right now and probably is in a better place.
And it's at Rochelle, too. So for Canelan, you lose homecoming, then you got to go on the road. This is going to be a really important week for Coach Thorgensen in practice. Absolutely important as they try and dial things in to go out to Rochelle. Remember, Rochelle doesn't have a Week 9 game. I'm still wanting them to call Marion Catholic because De La Salle is no longer this year. So that's your opening. Let's make it happen. Let's get ourselves a game. We like challenges despite the forfeits. So curious to see how things shake out in that conference. Sycamore next week, of course, as I pull up their schedule, just because out of curiosity, they go to LaSalle, so they go down and play in that beautiful stadium, and then they get Morris at home. So Morris comes to Sycamore. So the schedule really worked out for them where they ended up winning the road games they need to, but Morris comes to them this year before they get Cahokia, which isn't a cakewalk yet, but it's something that should be a win. A 9-0 Sycamore team in the postseason. What does that speak to you about where they would fall in 5A and who's going to be a team to kind of bother them at this point?
Yeah, it's interesting. You look at that bracket now, and the path looks like it may have been cleared for, if it wasn't already, Sycamore's got a chance at that one line right now. So
yeah,
but when you're looking at 5A North, I mean, you have to consider the normal.
Got Prairie Ridge.
You got Prairie Ridge. You got Nazareth. I mean, that's where you're looking at. So where does Nazareth land in the draw? Are they going to do what they did last year? Probably not. You're probably not going to find them at a 15 line. They're already in much better shape than they were last year. Winning tonight, actually, I think that puts them above their win total from last year because that was their 5th win tonight. So They no longer have to worry about whether or not they're going to get in as a 4-win team. They're in. So we don't have to have the conversation repetitively. Are they going to get in? What happens to them? I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about that last year. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. Nazareth has
kind of did it for 2 years in a row now with them. It was kind of tiring at some
point. Of points, so they're in. I mean, it's just a matter now of how high can they climb because they will not be on a 15 line this year. So the 2 seed can breathe easy because maybe Nazareth will be the 2 seed. I mean, to be completely honest with you, but we will not have a recreation of the 2-15 game that we had last year.
We have Plainfield East and Joliet Central in just a second, but I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about Downers Grove North and York. The North squad is a good squad, 35-14 over York tonight. Josh was at that one. Here's the recap.
This is Joshua Welge from Friday Night Drive here at York High School, where the final score in a matchup of 5-0 teams, Downers Grove North 35, York 14. For Downers Grove North, Jake Gregorio ran for 3 touchdowns, 2 of them in the first half. The third one, a 55-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter for the games for Downers Grove North's final score. Owen Lanzu, Minnesota recruit, junior quarterback, threw for 246 yards and 2 touchdowns. One of them a touchdown pass to Will Vawa in the last minute of the first half. The other one was kind of a backbreaker for York, a 55-yard touchdown on the last play of the third quarter that put Downers Grove North up 28-7. Again, the final score, Downers Grove North 35, York 14 for Downers Grove North. They get the other unbeaten left in the West Suburban Silver, Lyons Township in Downers Grove next Friday. So that one should be a very interesting matchup.
That one should be fun, and it's at Downers Grove North as well. I would be shocked if Lyons goes in there and gets a win. I know how good they are, but I would still be surprised considering the juice that North has going into that one.
My oversimplification of the night, Owen Lansu, good at football.
He's good at football. Yes,
that's really what it comes down to. Yes.
We need a sign that I just say good at football. Just hold it up just like that. We're going to work on that. Our production department, it's a big money spender for Shaw Local. I'm telling you, production department. They're going to get us signs for that. I just think Downers Grove North is, there's an element, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You just liked how they approached last season and how they approached the state championship game too. That really sometimes when you lose a title game, it does not carry over. 16 and 17-year-olds, there isn't that automatic, switch that says, you know what, we're taking this in the offseason. I it's one of the rare instances where they use that as a stepping stone and actually are doing the job.
Yeah. Sometimes chip on your shoulder can get out of control. You use the phraseology too much. Maybe it doesn't mean as much but it really kind of feels like this was an accurate representation of that. It felt like when I talked with Lanzu in the off season, it just kind of felt like he was one of these kids that was like, hey, we're putting that aside and we believe we can get back there and we believe we can do some damage when we get there. And it feels like everyone has kind of fallen in line with that mission. And I just like I said before, I like the way they approached that championship game. They knew they were underdogs, but they didn't act like they were and went in saying, hey, we're gonna throw what we have at them and see what we can do. And they did some good things in that game, even though the score at the end of it wasn't particularly that close. But you could see the signs of a team that had a lot coming back, and if you could put some positive foundation down, it looked like something that maybe you could build on. And they just really have done what they needed to do. Just like obstacle, just knock them out of the way, move on to the next one. Who got next? It feels like the momentum for them is in a really good place right now.
Similar to the conversation we had about half an hour ago to say, hey, is Geneva now a state contender, at least in 6A, to get down to normal? I think it's East St. Louis and everyone else, but can you put them in that second conversation? I want to add this to Downers Grove North, because with Mount Carmel losing tonight, with Batavia losing tonight, here's the thing. I watched Tony Shihito, who throws a nice ball for the Geneva Vikings. He's slinging it all over the field against a very good Batavia defense. And I'm wondering what an Owen Lansu could do in a quarterfinal game or a semifinal game against that Batavia defense in November, too. I'm wondering if Downers Grove North can finish the job this year. And I think tonight we found out they might.
Well, and the interesting thing about that is, now I think they're a candidate to move to the one line.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. So where will Batavia potential hurdles be in the draw? They could be anywhere. That's the beauty of the 1-32. Is they could end up on the bottom. DGN could end up on the top. Mount Carmel could be on either side. Where will they run into those teams? Maybe they don't run into either one of them. Maybe it's a situation where those two teams are playing each other for the right to get to Downers Grove North. So maybe they don't have to worry about those obstacles. It's all in the hopper in a 1-32. Yeah. You can find a bracket that might have all three of them on the same side. Or you could find, one on one side, two on the other. There's all kinds of permutations that you can look at right now, especially with 3 more weeks of the regular season to go. And, many layers to a possible loss being pinned here or maybe there. So who ends up where? It could be all kinds of things it comes down to. And the comical thing about it is we're talking about like Mount Carmel and where they fall. They still have that Week 9 game with Loyola. They already have 2 losses in the book. Let's just say if they take a third to Loyola, they're a 6-3 team in that draw, and they're like a 23 seed. They're going to pop up anywhere. They could be anywhere. So that's one of the elements that you really start to have to think about with some of these Catholic League teams that you're used to coming out of the regular season. 8-1. Well, these guys are going to come out of the regular season 7-2, 6-3, maybe in some cases 5-4, just because of the way the league is. And there's going to be a high seed that draws a 5-4 Brother Rice, for example, in the first round of the playoffs. And you're going to be like, well, what now? I'm a 3 seed and this is what I get? That's what may happen here.
Can I give you a team that does not want to hear about Mount Carmel being at 6-3? Normal Community.
Yes.
Hi there, because that's who's coming to your town. If you go 8-1 and they go 6-3, that's a nightmare. So, but this is what we're talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on the record. So as we get down to pairings night, that's how we're going to see it. All right, before we run out of time between the two of us here, Rob was at Plainfield East and Joliet Central. Let's get the recap on that one.
Here at Plainfield East tonight, Joliet Central still looking for their first win since 2019, but they are getting closer. Plainfield East came away with a 34-10 win tonight. But early in the game, Joliet Central had a 10-7 lead and took it almost to halftime when Plainfield East scored a touchdown on an untimed play after some interesting officiating, let's just put it that way. And then East was able to kind of wear Central down a little bit in the second half. The Bengals had two runners, Jeremiah Jenkins and Sean Harris, both run for over 100 yards. Jenkins scored 3 touchdowns. That puts Plainfield East now at 2-0 in the Southwest Prairie East, and Joliet Central falls to 0-2.
Let's talk about the Southwest Prairie, because Yorkville surprised Minooka tonight in a sense that, yeah, they could have won, but Minooka's offense had been rolling, and all of a sudden comes to a screeching halt here tonight.
Well, Minooka's been a tough team to read because we had that game early in the season where they kind of eked out that win over Neuqua Valley. It was the only kind of hiccup for them in the first part of the season. So you saw that maybe comes in, can play some capable defense against them. Maybe they get hemmed in a little bit. And I didn't see much of that game tonight. I clicked into it, saw 21-7. That was the first thing that I saw. There was maybe 3.5 minutes of the game left. So I don't really know how that developed yet. But like you said, Minooka had really been firing on all cylinders offensively and just kind of kept in check at 7 points. I thought there were some really interesting scores in that division tonight. It took Oswego a long time away from Bolingbrook. Yep. I mean, that was a very close game for most of the way. It ended up being a somewhat comfortable win for Oswego, but still, even the final is closer than I thought that game would have been. And then, you're coming off a last week where Bolingbrook kind of, I guess, handled Yorkville, and now it just kind of makes you think, what's going on here? It's like before this week started, I thought, well, maybe the primary challenger to Oswego is Minooka, and then Minooka goes and gets beat by 2 touchdowns to a team that lost to Bolingbrook. So then you start working through the permutations, and you're like, well, maybe it's Plainfield North again. I mean, they handled Oswego East pretty easily tonight. They seem to be getting a little bit better on offense. Alec Jessam has been a pretty productive runner for them this season, and they're more than willing to get into a defensive scuffle with you. So, that conference once again looks like it's going to be. There's going to be one final a week where you just scratch your head and go, I didn't see that coming.
Could be next week, though. I mean, Oswego has to go to Yorkville.
Yeah.
Yorkville's in a stretch where they get 4 or 5 at home. And
right.
They can't score, but I don't know how they can play some defense here. And that's what I'm starting to try and figure out with this conference. And when those two get together, they don't like each other. It's quite the rivalry, and Oswego's a tough time at Yorkville lately.
Yeah, it might be a rock fight, to be completely honest with you, based on what these two teams have done at times.
Take the under.
Oswego has beaten some teams pretty badly, but they're teams that they have a significant gap in talent over. When they've played better teams, they're more than willing to lean on their defense and say, we'll get you 2 touchdowns tonight, boys. Hold it down. And they're doing a good job of that. But it's, every once in a while, maybe you turn the ball over a couple of times, you can't get away with that. So it should be an interesting rest of the season in that conference because, like I said, on paper, a lot of these teams look pretty even, so it comes down to who plays better that night. And I've been waiting to kind of get a better read on Bolingbrook. How do you do in this conference? I thought they would be okay. I don't know if they're in the upper echelon, but at least tonight's game proved that they can hang around with what we believe to be the best team in that league.
Let's give some love to our favorite teams here. First off, the Seneca Irish, which is a favorite of ours. They were playing tonight. I had forgotten this recap. Wanted to come back to it because Bill did a good job covering it. And let's hear what Bill had to say. Seneca's win over Dwight Gardner South Wilmington.
All right, everybody, 52-22 is the final. Seneca over Dwight. At one point, it was a good game. Seneca had a 14-7 lead going into the half. Dwight got the ball to start the second half. First play from scrimmage went 67 yards to tie it up. So it was 14-14 with a whole half to play, but Seneca just turned it on after that. Scored 32 unanswered, pulled away, and in typical Seneca fashion, all on the ground. They had 3 ball carriers with at least 100 yards. And that was just that. Seneca, a statement win to continue their undefeated season. They'll have a bye next week, but Dwight will host St. Bede and get to 3-3. So, not a do or die one for Dwight, but they got a few more weeks to pick it up. 52-22 is the final. Thanks.
We love the Seneca Irish, 26 in a row now in the regular season, but we also like Dwight because they'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime. And, they dropped a 3-3, but they're tested. They've been very tested for sure.
And I think their schedule that was kind of why they felt like they could do that. I think the back half of their schedule is a little bit more favorable to them. They should be able to definitely get to 5. So, moving forward, they're in a good place. So hanging in there, with Seneca is not an easy task for anybody, especially at that level. It feels like Seneca hasn't lost a regular season game in about 5 years at this point. That's just what they do. They crank out those victories and get themselves in a good situation.
Our Fenton Bison fell tonight. Are you going to be okay with that?
I'm going to have to be. Basically what it comes down to is we knew that there was going to be some games down the stretch where they were going to have some problems, but I still think they're going to put in a playoff position, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah. They lose to Glenbard East tonight, 48-14. So a blowout win. Honestly, I think this is something that you expected from these teams within the league. But again, let's see how the schedule shakes out for them. Lake Park over Glenbard North, 29-21. Huntley over Crystal Lake South. So Huntley kind of gets themselves righted a little bit, 38-12, the final there. Grant back in the win column, 35-7. And let's see. Downers Grove South over Hinsdale South, 31-28. What do you make of that? What do you make of the Trojans right now?
I think that was it. There's been a couple of weeks here that has kind of made it look like that Downers Grove South is in a good position. This was a game that I felt like they could get tonight. Hinsdale South's kind of been all over the map. Yeah. In their production this year. It felt like a few weeks ago there was a path for them to get to 5 wins. I don't know if that path exists anymore. So basically, Downers Grove South doing what they have to do in this situation. Willowbrook, I think, is still probably the class team of that division, but Addison Trail's playing a little bit better. So there aren't as many just here's a win for you guys that there have been in the past. So, right. When you look at them on paper, a hard road for Hinsdale South to get themselves in the playoffs. This keeps Downers Grove South on the right track.
I said Trojans. I meant Mustangs. I misspoke. So my apologies there. Don't at me on that one. Hey, by the way, we mentioned the Fenton Bison. Here's an interesting path I just want to think about. West Chicago, big win over Elmwood Park tonight. They're now 4-2 on the season. Yeah. Let's look at their schedule. Guess who's in week 9? West Chicago and Fenton.
Okay.
And this is it's at West Chicago of all places. Yeah. Well, that may be where your playoff bid is decided between those two. I never thought I would say that I'd be watching that to find out the difference there. We're seeing a final come across Stevenson over Lake Forest. Is that correct?
Yeah, I trust that source. Matt now usually is on top of it. So I'm guessing that he's got verification of that. And that is a little surprising. But after last week, I'm starting to think that maybe Lake Forest has got some issues right now because the loss to Lake Zurich followed up with a loss here to Stevenson. I don't necessarily think Stevenson's a bad team.
No.
But I would have thought on paper that this would have been a bounce back game for Lake Forest. So there must be something going on there. Good win for Stevenson, keeps them on the path, improves their situation based on where I thought they'd be after this week. So, like I said, they'll move up a little bit in the projections this week based on that victory. Lake Forest sliding down now. So, they're another team that, when you start talking about 6A and where they're going to be.
Yeah.
Now they've turned from being, near the top of the bracket to how close to the bottom are they going to get? So how high of a seed is going to end up drawing a Lake Forest in the opening round of the playoffs?
Don't want that from a Geneva fan. No, thank you. Because they've played each other the last couple of years. There's some familiarity in that as well. We thought Robbie Gold could be turning this program around. Not yet. Prospect 41-14 final of that one as well. Let's see. I don't know if I see any others. Oh, St. Charles North beat St. Charles East. That was a tight one at halftime, by the way. North Stars ran away in the second half and hid quickly. So, but other than that, I am quiet on most of the scores. East Peoria went down Washington got them big, 42-6. So not sure if Washington's back or if East Peoria is fizzling a little bit here. So as we wrap up here between the two of us, just your final thoughts on what you saw in a week 6. Your Fisher Bunny is a winner over Fieldcrest tonight, 28-14.
Well, I think what this really came down to this week is I felt like the last 2 weeks we've had pretty consistent stability. We come on here and the list of teams that like were pulling rabbits out of their hats or pulling off a surprise was pretty short. But I think when we sit down and really kind of analyze and break down this week after effect, we learned a lot, not only in the upsets, but in some of the margins of games that we thought were toss-ups that turned out to not be toss-ups. So I think in the long run, week 6 was very educational to the overall scheme of things in state of Illinois football.
Freeport a winner tonight. Go Pretzels. Also, if you're a Sycamore fan, Cahokia won tonight. That's a good thing because you need all those playoff points to try and separate you a little bit away from the Prairie Ridges and Nazareth if you're looking at second round, quarterfinals, so on and so forth. Right. So good night for the Sycamore Spartans for sure. That will do it for us. And Bennett tonight getting back on the winning track. That one just came in here at 49-30. Go Red Wings. That will do it for us. Some highlights as we head out the door. Soucie stays with you deep into the dark depths of the evening. Let's go Vikings till victory is yours. They finally beat Batavia. Go Vikings. All right, I'm done. See you next week.
Alrighty, guys. Let's go right in and dive in. I've got a lot of scores that I were able to get in early, so we should be somewhat set up tonight. I'm going to do a little bit of organizing here real quick. But fun night. Some upsets, some interesting scores. Lots of stuff going on. Okay. Hopefully my dog will remain calm for the majority of the rest of the evening. Okay, so I'm going to start where we always start. with the Apollo. Okay. So let me get that pulled up here. I can see the feed tonight, Grant. So we're all good. That has been working all show. So we have been able to draw on that. So right now I'm just punching in some of the Apollo scores that I have. So Muhammad Seymour over Mount Zion. That's a good win there for them. Boy, that's a good win. Taylorville, that's an important win for them over Effingham. Keeps them in the mix. All right, so right now, do not have a Charleston Mattoon score. I saw it earlier, but it wasn't a final. So I'm going to check a couple other places before I start tonight's list. Yep, just found it. Mattoon with a 20-17 win. So that hurts Charleston. That's a loss that I don't think I expected them to take. All right, so we can move out of the Apollo and into the Big Northern. I got most of those scores inputted, but I don't think I saw a North Boone Rock Falls score. So if anybody has that out there, I'm going to check a couple other places. Yeah, I'm not seeing a North Boone Rock Falls score anywhere. So as of right now, that's going to be the first one on the list. Thank you, Weather. Already all over it tonight. Okay, on to the Big 12. So, like I said, I was able to get quite a few scores, especially the Chicagoland ones, into the system already. So tonight might go a little quicker than usual. Danville over Champaign Central. That's a good one. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. I see that correction on the North Boone score. Okay. And then I have the normal community final. I have that already in there. Okay, so I am looking for quite a few of them on the grab here right now from the Big 12. My normal sources are not producing very many scores. Okay, Peoria Notre Dame did win, so that's 67-8. It's going to knock one of them out. And then I know that Normal West won 21-7. So now we're getting it down. Champaign Centennial, 55-15 over Urbana. Urbana, 15-55. Okay, so I do have, oh, nope, I got them all now, so I don't need any of them. Peoria Richwoods loses 66 Peoria. Okay, so the Big 12 is done. Now we go to Black Diamond. I saw a few of them. Okay, my computer is not being very cooperative tonight. It's taking its sweet time on a lot of these things. Okay, so the Black Diamond tonight, White County, 72-27 over Christopher. Okay, Cesar, 38-0 over Edwards County. And the other game is Saturday. So we're all done with that conference. Now we're going to Cahokia, Illinois. Okay, needs several here, it looks like. Almost all of them, but I'm going to check one more place. Okay, so right now it looks like Trenton Westland and Sparta is the first score of the night. If that's the only one I'm missing, I'll be happy because that is two schools that have not won yet. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not a hugely important score. So Chester, a 41-0 win to go to 6-0 over Carlisle tonight. And Redbud all over. Nope, Redbud edges Dupo. That was an interesting game. I was wondering what was going to happen there. So that was truly a toss-up. Thank you again, Weather. 34-6 Westland. That's what I thought would happen. Okay, now to the Cahokia, Mississippi. And we've got Columbia winning 60-12 over Wood River, and that was the only game that I needed. Okay, so now we're into the CCL. I got most of these in. So Brother Rice wins 16-13, an absolutely huge win for Rice. Gets them back to 3-3, and I think they've got 2 more wins on their schedule, so that probably puts them in a good shape. So all the Catholic League scores I've found, except for I did not see a Providence Marist final. That may just be sitting here when I look for it. No, Providence Marist right now is. I think someone put it in the chat earlier tonight. I missed it, so if someone can fill me in on that one, I'd appreciate it. No, I just found it. 28-7 in favor of Marist. So that's it. And I know somebody put the Bennett score right in at the end. If somebody could refresh my memory on that, that would be good. Trying to do this all one-handed right now because I got a dog that's going to start barking here any second. So Bennett and St. Patrick is my requested score right now. There it is. Thank you. 49-20. All right, so that gets me through all of the Catholic League. Actually, no, it doesn't. Montini and Carmel, I know I saw it. I know who won. I cannot remember the final. There it is, 34-16. Okay, so now I'm not lying. I'm through the Catholic League. So on to the Central State 8. Okay, let's see what we got here. Normal over Glenwood. I got to say, that is a pretty big surprise to me, especially the margin. 33-13. Really big win right there for Normal University. Okay, Rochester 55-0 over Eisenhower. And Lincoln is playing Decatur MacArthur, and I don't see that right off the top. So let's see if I can find it. There it is, Lincoln 43-33. So Lincoln, that's a pretty important win for Lincoln. I still don't know if they can get there, but they definitely needed that one tonight. Okay, so now we are on the Central State 8 West. I have not seen much of that other than the Quincy Notre Dame score. Okay, Jacksonville and Springfield is one that I'm looking for right now. Let's see if I can find that. I have a fourth quarter score right here between Springfield and Jacksonville. Has Springfield leading 36-29. I'm going to want a final on that one if I can find it because that one is actually pretty important. So both of those teams are kind of fence riders. They both kind of need this win. I think I projected Jacksonville to win the game this week, but I've kind of been going back and forth on it. So as we move ahead, that's one that I'm definitely looking for. So right now, Jacksonville and Springfield, an official score is what I seek. So I'm digging out some scores from Chicagoland that I was missing earlier. I got those. I'm going to skip past the Jacksonville game for now and move down into some of the central suburban stuff. Evanston 40-20 over New Trier. That's a good win for them. Strangely, I'm looking for a Maine South score. I've not seen that from tonight. Usually that's one that I will get relatively easily. See if I can find it here. Nope, I'm missing Maine South and Glenbrook North. So thank you for the Springfield-Jacksonville score. So 36-29. Thank you on the Maine South score. So we're moving along quite nicely tonight. Full calendar of games. It's a heavy Friday night, so once we get through this, we'll have a lot of information. Okay. So now I am looking for St. Bede and Illinois Valley Central. Out of the Chicagoland Prairie, that's a non-con game. Just found it. 35-22 IVC. So I'm going to go put the IVC score in so I don't forget later. All right. So now, after we get that in, we're into the public league, and I have not seen a score on Taft and Phillips, and I'm not 100% sure that there it is. Taft 14-10 win over Phillips. So another nice win for Taft. They're doing a really good job. So Taft hoping to stack up enough wins to avoid what happened to them last year, which was a first-round matchup with Lincoln Way East. So, all right. So here is a public league game that I'm missing. I know the odds of my finding it are probably not that great tonight, but I'm going to try anyway. I'm going to check a couple places first. Sen and Crane is the game in question. Do not have that final. So I'm going to check one more place before I move on. I do not have Sen and Crane. So the rest of the public league games, except for this one, Noble Comer and Englewood. See if I can find that one. No, I cannot. So that's the next one. Yep. Comer and Englewood. So two public league games so far tonight. Sen, Crane, Comer, and Englewood. But now we're moving out of the public league. I've got all those. I got all the Duquesne. I got all the Fox Valleys. Now I'm moving into the heart of Central Illinois. So these are the ones that I'm not as able to get as easily early on Friday night. So now I'm going to start checking around for those. So El Paso 34-30 over Shelbyville. Eureka 49-0 over Ridgeview. Tri-Valley 47-6 over Clinton. And as of this moment, I'm looking for Deer Creek, Mackinac, and Tremont. Yep. That is one that I need. Deer Creek, Mackinac, Tremont. So let's go to the Heart of Illinois Small. I have a feeling we're going to have a guest on in a second because I got a dog that wants to jump on me here. Okay, Fisher over Fieldcrest. That's interesting. I know Matt did close the show with that, but I guess it didn't register at the time. Gibson City over Tuscola. Thank you for the Deer Creek score. Okay, so that's done. Central A&M loses to Warrensburg-Latham. Rushville over Hayworth. 642. We'll put the Rushville score in. $42.26. Okay. So right now I'm looking for Leroy and Macon Meridian. And there that score is. So I don't need that one anymore. All right. So on to the Illini Prairie. Monticello 46-13 over Rantoul. Paxton 22-7 over Prairie Central. St. Joe Ogden 38-19 over Bloomington Central Catholic. And as of this moment, I am missing a Tolono Unity Paxton's or Pontiac score. Tolono Unity and Pontiac. Yep, I don't have that one. So Tolono and Pontiac is on the request list. File. So I have all the scores from the Illinois Central 8. Yep, that 16-13 game, one of the big upsets of the night, I think. Interested to find out what the status is on Mount Carmel quarterback Jack Elliott, who didn't play tonight. But still a huge win for Brother Rice. They really needed that one. So now I'm moving into the independents. Boy, Belleville-Altoff, a 40-point win over Collinsville. My goodness. That is a really good 1A football team. Granite City loses to Carbondale. Let's see what else we got. We got Westmont losing. Okay, so we're missing some independent scores. I'll get to them here in a second, but I want to check a few things. Okay. So looking for Breeze Mater Dei and Alton Marquette, Red Hill and Eastern Green, Indiana. the dog does one on the show. That dog is kind of a brat, so it would not be surprising if we heard a little bit more chatting from her tonight. She doesn't like it when she's not the focus of the universe. Also must have strong opinions about the independents. Okay, so Sycamore wins 35-7. Come on, Winnie. Okay, I don't have an Ottawa LaSalle Peru score from tonight. Eastern 28-12. Okay. So thank you for the Red Hill score. I'll be back in 1 second, guys. I'm going to see if I can quiet the dog. Okay, let's see how that goes. Nope, that didn't work. Okay. Okay, so now we're in the Kishwaukee River. Okay, so Woodstock 2610. Johnsburg 34-7. Okay, Sandwich loses 14-4 or wins 49-14. You know, I'm not really surprised by anything right now on the Kishwaukee River. Just about anything can happen. I had Johnsburg pegged to win that game, but I also had Richmond, Burton, and Sandwich being a lot closer than it was. So just kind of all over in the map in that conference right now. That was an important win for Johnsburg. So that's kind of a stinger for Marengo. Okay, now I'm in the Little Illini Conference. And like I said before, right now the games that I'm missing are Tolono, Pontiac, Breeze Mater Dei, Alton Marquette, Ottawa LaSalle Peru, Comer and Englewood, Sen and Crane. So that's where we're at on missing games. Moving on to the Lincoln Prairie Conference. See what we got there. Argenta over Tri-County. That's going to come down to that, I think, Grant. That's a situation right there that it'll probably come down to it for whether or not they get in. Battle of 5-0s tonight. Arthur beats Nokomis 26-8. Cerro Gordo and Villa Grove. That's 42-7 Villa Grove. Cumberland wins 46-6 over Arcola. And then the Lincoln Prairie Large Conference. Elmwood over Bureau Valley, 27-21. Farmington did come back to beat Macomb. Macomb was up somewhat substantially early in that game. Farmington knocks them off. LP 14-7, thank you. Well, that was much closer than the first time. All right. So, Illini West over Knoxville, 32-20. Okay. So now I'm checking somewhere else for the one that I'm missing out of this conference before I add it to the list. Okay, so I'm missing Lewistown and West Hancock. One more time, because now that I close the door, the dog is going to freak out every second. I even sacrificed a pair of my socks, but that didn't seem to keep her going either. Okay, so the Lincoln Trail Small. Abingdon 28-18 over Monmouth United. Wethersfield 61-34 over Havana. Stark County 55-27 over Rova. Okay. So now I think I'm looking for Princeville. Yep, I'm looking for Princeville and South Fulton. So, to recap, the list is starting to grow. Sen and Crane, Comer and Englewood, Kelowna Unity and Pontiac, Breeze Mater Dei, Alton Marquette, Lewistown, West Hancock, and Princeville, South Fulton. So on to the little Illini. About 100 games left to try to track. Casey Westfield over Marshall. Newton over Paris. Richland County over Mount Carmel. So Richland, wow, that's interesting. Richland County is out to 6-0 and just beat the conference stronghold by 27 points. I think I need to reevaluate those guys. So, did Woodstock win tonight? I can't remember. Let me go look. They did win. They won 26-10 over Plano. Thank you for the Tolono Unity score. Appreciated. Okay. So now I'm going to move back down into Little Illini. Got all those scores in. Now we're moving to the Mid Illini. I know a few of those finals, but not all of them. Mid Illini. Okay, there I just found one of them that I was missing. Dunlap 43-6 over Canton. Washington 42-6 over East Peoria. Metamora loses 42-35 to Pekin. And Morton beats Limestone 51-6. So, through that conference, all right, so now we're going to go to the Mid-Suburban. I should have those. Elk Grove 43-6 over Wheeling. Percy 48-7 over Buffalo Grove. And Prospect beats Rolling Meadows 41-14. Okay, here's one of the bigger ones of the night. Fremd 56-35 over Barrington. I haven't done it yet, but I think that's probably going to catapult Fremd into the top 10. That's a really nice win. Schaumburg over Conant. I think that's win number 5 for Schaumburg, so that puts them in the playoffs for the first time in a while. Okay, so now I need to check one more place before I add one of these mid-sub scores to the board. Palatine and Hoffman Estates is a game that I'm looking for. So the board is now Sen and Crane, Comer and Inglewood, Breeze Mater Dei and Alton Marquette, Lewistown, West Hancock, Princeville, South Fulton, Palatine, Hoffman Estates. Thank you. Palatine 56. States 22. Okay. Now we're on to the Mississippi Valley. Highland wins 62-0. Triad wins 37-22. Okay, I got one score right now that I'm missing in the Mississippi Valley, but I'm going to check one more place before adding it to the list. Yep, I need it. So Jersey and Waterloo is now on the board. Okay, so heading back to the North Suburban now. Wake Forest. Lake Zurich beats Zion Benton. 38-6. Libertyville over Waukegan. Warren over Mundelein. Okay. So now we're into the Northern Illinois 10. Boylan wins 41-8 over Auburn. Guilford 28-14 over Jeff. Thank you for the Waterloo score. Okay. Belvedere North. We don't have that one. Onondaga 44-15 over East. Freeport beats Harlan 22-14. That's a nice win for Freeport. That's really going to help their cause. Okay, as of this second, I'm going to check one more place. I don't have a Belvedere North score. So I'm missing that one. Northern Lake County now. Antioch over Grays Lake North, 22-18. Grant over Round Lake, 35-7. North Chicago over Lakes, 21-17. Grays Lake Central loses to Wakanda, 44-6. Thank you for that. Belvedere North, the winner. I expected that. But, okay. So, into the Northwest Upstate Illini. Okay. Stockton beats Forreston 44-20. Galena over Fulton. That was one that I was waiting on tonight. That was definitely one that I thought was going to have an effect on how the field was put together, and it is. So Eastland beats Westmont easily. Galena Winslow wins 46-22. So they're done, and now we're moving on to the Sangamo. Maroa wins 50-8 over Pittsfield. New Berlin over Olymp. Oh boy, that's a nice win for New Berlin. 21-14. I just added New Berlin last week, and now they're going to climb a little bit more. Auburn 48-34 over Porta. Okay. And I think I'm looking for a Williamsville Athens score. Let me check one more place before I make that official. I am looking for a Williamsville-Athens score from tonight. Now I'm going to move on to the Southern Illinois River, Mississippi. Thank you for that. $52-6. All right, so should be around 40 scores left that we're hunting at this point in time, plus the ones that I don't have. So probably in the neighborhood of about 50 total. Hickneyville gets a win tonight. That's a rarity. Benton, Nashville. That was Nashville 27-10. And then Heron and Massac. Heron wins 28-0. Okay, so we're out of that conference because there's a Saturday game, and now we're going to South Central. Okay, North Mac over Carlinville, 21-14. Vandalia, third. Wow, there's an upset. Vandalia over Greenville tonight. Camden beats Hillsborough 48-14. Staunton over Southwestern 44-21. Okay, and the other one's on Saturday. South 7 is next up. South 7, we've got Cahokia winning again. It's a good team, 5-1, flying under the radar, but I think they're pretty strong. Centralia over Marion, so that's kind of an interesting result as well. So another week of chaos in the South 7. I've never seen a conference with just 5 teams that I've been failing to read on a weekly basis. Okay, so now I'm in the South Suburban Conference. Hillcrest wins 43-0. I need a Tinley Park Argo score, and I don't know where that is. That's a non-con, so maybe it's in here. Yep. Argo loses, so that's interesting. Argo is an interesting case because they're kind of on the brink of being possibly a playoff team, and then they have the same enrollment as another team that's probably going to the playoffs. And both of those two teams are hanging around the bubble. So those are a very interesting couple of teams to watch, and whether or not they get into the playoffs and whether or not they're on the bubble, because the state will separate that with a coin flip if it comes down to it. Sending one team to one class and one team to another if two teams are caught on the break and have the same enrollment. So right now, not really. I haven't seen a lot of teams that I think are moving in, moving out. So there might be a couple, and I think if there are, they're probably going to be from larger schools, which would mean a shift back down with some of the smaller schools moving into bigger classes. But that's just speculation right now, because there have been very few games tonight where I've seen a team that I didn't have in the field that is going in the field. A lot of the moves are seed related. There's going to be a lot of movement in next week's projection, but it's going to be heavy on the seeds just because of some of the losses that were taken by teams tonight that were unexpected. But both of the teams were playoff teams, so there's not much movement in regards to in-out, and that's what affects the bubbles. So right now, I'm just kind of moving through. I had a lot of these Southwest Valley scores earlier, so Naperville North, 38-23 over Lincoln Way West. Okay, so then we've got Bradley Bourbonnais 38-14 over Stagg. So less than 40 games chasing right now. I'm waiting for one more game for me to give the rundown on what I'm missing. It's got about 7 games on it right now. A little high, but nothing out of control. Okay, I saw it earlier. Does someone have an East St. Louis final from tonight? I think it was 65-10, but I don't like to guess. $63-10. Okay. I'm also looking for an Edwardsville score from tonight. Edwardsville and Alton. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the games that I'm missing. Senon, Crane, Comer, and Englewood. Rees, Mater Dei, Alton, Marquette. Lewiston, West Hancock. Princeville, South Fulton. Edwardsville, Alton. And I do no longer need Edwardsville, Alton. Thank you. Okay. So now we're moving into the Southwest Prairie. And almost home, guys. This has been pretty quick tonight. Dixon did win. They won by a lot. I think they scored 73 points. 72 points. Okay. So Plainfield South over Joliet West. 20-7. That puts Plainfield South in the driver's seat in that conference. And then Plainfield East beat Joliet Central 34-10. Okay, I'm looking for a Romeoville Plainfield Central score. And now I'm into the Three Rivers. About 10 conferences to go. So, going to be another early night tonight because I got a lot of them in early. Okay, Monmouth over Sherrard, 69-12. Thank you. I saw that score earlier. It was 24-0. I just wanted to verify the final. Okay. So now we've got the Mississippi side done. Now we move over to the Rock. Okay. So Newman wins 29-16 over Mercer County. Rockridge over Orion. Okay. So right now I think I'm missing an Erie and Riverdale score. I'm going to check one more place before I put them on the list. Yep, I'm missing Erie and Riverdale. Okay, Upstate 8. Lombard East 48-14 over Fenton. Lombard South 21-26 over Riverside Brookfield. West Aurora 51-0 over Ridgewood. Okay, let me see what I can find on South Elgin and Streamwood. Yep, I need that one. South Elgin and Streamwood added to the list. Okay, so moving on to the Vermilion Valley. And our last 6 conferences of the night. Westville beats Clifton Central 48-40. Probably puts Central on the outside looking in. Riverdale over Erie, really? Okay. All right, so go back to the men's with a 28-20 win over Salt Fork. Georgetown Ridge Farm over Iroquois West. Okay. Checking one more place here. See if I can find that one out. Yep, I did. Bismarck over Watseka. 12-59. Let's see, 59-12. Okay, last 5 conferences. Start with the West Suburban Gold. Downers Grove South, 31-28. Willowbrook, 51-0. Okay, and then we're going to check down here, because I have a feeling this game is going to be played on Saturday, and I just didn't have it in the right place. Correct. That is a Saturday game. All right. So Lions beats Oak Park 49-14. And then the other games are Saturday. So we are down to the Western Big Six and the Western Illinois Valley. Okay. So I'm looking for Rock Island and East Moline. Sterling over Geneseo. The other games in this conference were last night. And now the Western Illinois Valley. So that's going to be, so just to recap, what I'm missing so far: Senon Crane, Comer Englewood, Breeze Mater Dei Alton Marquette, Lewistown West Hancock, Princeville South Fulton, South Elgin Streamwood, and Rock Island and East Moline. Those are the 7 games that I don't have as I head into the last conference. And I think I'm going to add one more here. At least one more. Yep. Triopia and Mendon Unity. Yep, having a lot of problems in the Western Illinois Valley tonight. So, yep, I'm missing all these. So North Green, Pleasant Hill, West Central, and Greenfield. So missing a lot of games tonight. United Township with 34-7 win. Thank you. Over Rock Island. So now I'm going to check a Twitter account that is sometimes helpful for these scores. Brown County over Beardstown. That was last night. I just forgot to put it in. Okay, so now I have all of my Western Illinois Valley. So scratch those last 3 games that I gave you. And we're down to 6 total. Greenfield, 45-22. Pleasant Hill, 22. North Green, 6. Unity 38, Triopia 22. So that leaves 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games unaccounted for tonight. Sen Crane, Comer Englewood, Breeze Mater Dei, Alton Marquette, Lewistown West Hancock, Princeville South Fulton, South Elgin, and Streamwood. So those are the 6 games that I don't have reported right now. In world record time tonight, I have to say. But I'm going to do a little sorting here for some information before I find out what is causing the utter panic with my dog. Probably nothing. 41 teams are now undefeated, and a whole bunch more tomorrow can join them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 more. So 41 maximum, 48. One of the 5-0s played tonight, but I haven't been able to find the score. That's Princeville. So Breeze Mater Dei plays tomorrow. Thank you. It did seem weird that I couldn't find that. So, like I said, 41 undefeateds, possibly 7 more tomorrow. 48. So that will do it for tonight. We got all the scores in. Everything's done. Flora and Fairfield tomorrow too. Yep. Okay. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, guys. That'll do it tonight.